News spread through the city's elite. Darius Lorre, the arrogant heir of the Lorre family, had been in a terrible car crash. Blinded and paralyzed, doctors said he'd never walk or have children again. The news reached the Beaumont estate. My older sister, Sylvie, a famous celebrity, broke down in tears and knelt before me, begging me to take her place in the arranged marriage. I curled my lip and coldly kicked her hand away. When the Lorres were a top dynasty, they specifically asked for a Beaumont heiress. To lift you up, they erased me from the family register, labeled me illegitimate, and made you the only Miss Beaumont. My voice was low and threatening. Now that Darius is blind and crippled, you suddenly remember me? Dream on. Before I finished, Gareth Maxwell kicked the unlocked door open. He swept Sylvie up and glared at me with pure disgust. Serafina, don't be ungrateful. This engagement was always meant for you. This is just fixing things. He threw a prenup at me. Tomorrow, Sylvie and I get our marriage license. As for the Lorres, you're marrying him. I froze, my chest tightening as if filled with a vinegar-soaked sponge, a hollow ache spreading inside. The Lorres want a Beaumont heiress, I countered, my voice tight. I'm merely an illegitimate daughter whose name isn't even on the family register. If I marry him, that's commercial fraud. Just then, my parents, Richard and Eleanor Beaumont, stormed in, their faces grim. They tossed a brand new household register and a share transfer deed onto the coffee table. Starting tomorrow, your identity as the Beaumont heiress will be publicly restored. Sylvie is a public figure. She cannot endure a lifetime of loneliness, let alone the torment of that madman Darius, Eleanor stated, her voice flat. You will marry him, settle in as Mrs. Lorre. This is for the good of the family. Looking at my utterly biased family of three, a laugh bubbled up, quickly turning to tears. My heart, once a fragile thing, solidified into a block of ice.
Fine.
I'll marry him. I hope you don't regret this to your dying day. My concession instantly eased the tension in the room. My father, Richard, grinned, praising my maturity. My mother, Eleanor, exhaled in relief, commending my sensibility. Gareth, ecstatic, lifted Sylvie into his arms and spun her around twice, relief washing over him. Oh, Sylvie, this is wonderful. You won't have to be ruined by that blind man. We'll make our announcement tomorrow. Sylvie, sniffling in his embrace, forced a watery smile, as if she'd narrowly escaped disaster. I watched them, my gaze cold, then spoke, enunciating each word. But I have a condition. Their smiles stiffened, and all four faces immediately clouded over. They demanded to know what it was. My voice was as calm as if I were negotiating a business deal. There can only be one Beaumont heiress. I want Sylvie to publicly acknowledge she's adopted and return all the status and shares that rightfully belong to me. Eleanor's composure snapped. Serafina Beaumont, don't be so excessive. Sylvie's status is impeccable. She won't interfere with you. Must you ruin her? I looked at the woman who had given birth to me, my chest aching as if stabbed by 1,000 needles. I am your biological daughter. From childhood, why did you lavish so much affection on an adopted child, even helping her steal everything that was mine? Her face hardened, her voice brittle. If Sylvie's biological mother hadn't taken a blade for me, I would be dead. I owe it to her to treat Sylvie well.
Right.
6 months ago, after Sylvie's birth mother, who had been our housekeeper, passed away, my mother had become inexplicably obsessed with Sylvie, doting on her to an absurd degree. When the news of the Lorre engagement first broke, Sylvie expressed interest, and my mother immediately pressured my father to alter my family registration, effectively exiling me to the countryside. When I returned to confront her, she had me locked in the basement for 3 days without food, claiming I lacked propriety. Shaking myself back to the present, I took a deep breath, suppressing the burning in my eyes. So, for the sake of gratitude, you'll disregard your own daughter's well-being? Even push her into the jaws of hell? A thought struck me. Do you have some leverage she holds over you? Eleanor's eyes darted away, refusing to address the question. Gareth, his face cold, interjected, "Sylvie is simply naive and timid, not like your scheming, calculating self. Aunt Eleanor, being kind-hearted, naturally favors the more vulnerable one." Richard lit a cigarette, sighing. "It's come to this. For the sake of the group's interests, we can only let you marry Darius. I'm sorry, Serafina. Don't hate me. My father had once loved me, but he was a man easily swayed by my mother and ultimately a self-serving individual." Faced with Eleanor's insistent whispers and the group's bottom line, my sacrifice was insignificant. Sylvie dabbed at her eyes again, her voice feigning fragility. "Sister, just agree. No matter what, it's still the Lorre family. Even a fallen giant holds more sway than an ordinary man. No one would dare bully you." "No one would bully me?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping. Who in the city doesn't know that Darius is now volatile and unpredictable? Not only is he blind, his mind is twisted. Do you not know what happened to his previous fiancés? My voice dropped, chillingly precise. The Lorre family is currently embroiled in severe infighting, and Darius is losing his grip on power. Once he's completely sidelined, his enemies will tear him apart. You claim you're sending me to live a life of luxury, but in reality, you're sending me to my death. My family exchanged wary glances, momentarily speechless. I smirked, pressing my advantage. My reclaiming the heiress status is also for the Beaumont's benefit. What if the Lorre family discovers you tried to fob them off with an illegitimate child? If they retaliate, will the Beaumont Group's stock still hold its value? I watched Richard's hand tremble at the mention of the stock price. "So, I want you to issue a public statement, clarifying to the entire network that I, Serafina Beaumont, am the only true Beaumont heiress." He nodded frantically. Yes, we'll do as you say. I'll have the statement released first thing tomorrow morning." The other three wanted to object, but, cowed by the Lorre family's formidable reputation, dared not utter a sound. I offered a small, predatory smile.
"Fine.
The moment that announcement is public, I'll pack myself up and send myself straight to the Lorre estate." The next day, the public clarification regarding the true and false Beaumont heiress dominated the trending topics. The entire network was buzzing, siding with me. It turned out the illegitimate daughter, who had been universally reviled, was the true heiress, while Sylvie, who had meticulously crafted her image as a socialite, was merely adopted and was now returning my status to escape the arranged marriage. Sylvie had planned to announce her engagement to Gareth and get married today, but the public backlash was so severe she didn't dare leave her room. She spent the entire day locked away, smashing things, refusing to eat or drink. My parents brought her countless limited-edition designer bags, but nothing could soothe her. Gareth, seething with rage, burst into my room. He grabbed my throat, his eyes blazing crimson. Sylvie is overwhelmed by the public backlash, on the verge of a breakdown. "Is this what you wanted to see?" Suffocating, I clawed at his arm, forcing out a few strained words. "You choke me to death, and Sylvie will still have to marry that blind man." He recoiled violently, as if I were something vile and contaminated. I clutched my throat, coughing uncontrollably, greedily gasping for air. When my breath finally steadied, I looked up, my gaze glacial. Was anything in that statement untrue? The public's eyes are keen, Gareth. They're simply speaking the truth. Gareth was left speechless, his jaw clenched, then pleaded through gritted teeth. "Can't you release a statement? Just say you concealed your identity for personal growth, that it had nothing to do with Sylvie." "Dream on," I retorted, my voice sharp and uncompromising. "If Sylvie does something foolish, I swear I'll never forgive you." I scoffed disdainfully. "I don't know whether she'll die or not. But I do know this. If I die, the Lorre wedding procession will be pulling up to my funeral parlor tomorrow." "You." Gareth's forehead pulsed with visible veins, his fists clenching until his knuckles cracked. Yet he didn't dare lay another hand on me. "Fine, Serafina Beaumont, you've got guts. I'll just wait to see you marry that lunatic. Wait until you're thrown out on the streets to die." Watching him slam the door behind him, My heart felt like it was being sawed through with a dull blade. The boy who had once sworn he would marry no one but me had, at some point, lost his sight and blackened his heart. He even wished for my death with such venom. A single tear splattered onto the back of my hand, scalding hot. I wiped it away, the last fragile thread of affection in my heart snapping cleanly. That night, my mother, Eleanor, suddenly burst into my room, wielding a golf club. She ordered 2 bodyguards to pin me to the floor, leaving me utterly helpless. I struggled fiercely, screaming, "Mother, what are you doing?" "I'm marrying into the Lorre family tomorrow. I'm Darius Lorre's fiancé. How dare you lay a hand on me?" She ignored me completely. Turning, she handed the golf club to Sylvie, whose eyes were swollen like peaches. Eleanor's voice was sickeningly sweet. "Sylvie, darling, go ahead. Hit her as many times as you like, anywhere you want. Mother needs to help you get this anger out." A flash of malicious glee flickered in Sylvie's eyes. She seized the club and brought it down with brutal force across my back. I screamed in agony, gritting my teeth as I warned. "Darius may be blind, but he's not dead yet. Do you really want to die, touching his fiancée?" Sylvie, as if possessed, continued to strike my back, blow after blow. Her strength wasn't immense, but her aim was viciously precise, repeatedly targeting the same spot. The searing pain made my vision swim, and cold sweat instantly drenched my clothes. My mother stood by, watching with chilling indifference, even adding fuel to the fire. "You haven't married him yet. As long as you're in this house, I have every right to discipline you." With my mother's backing, Sylvie grew even more brazen. "Mother's right. You made me a laughingstock online. If I don't get my revenge, how am I supposed to sleep tonight? Anyway, there's still a whole night. As long as I don't hit your face, what can that blind man see if you just put on some thick powder?" Just as I felt myself slipping into unconsciousness from the pain, my father, Richard, suddenly ran in, panting.
"Stop.
Don't hit her. The Lorre family just called. The wedding ceremony has been moved up to first thing tomorrow morning." Sylvie gasped, her hand trembling so violently the golf club clattered to the floor with a clang. She stared at my bleeding back, her voice shaking. "Father, her back is bleeding. What if the Lorre family finds out? Will they blame us?" Richard's face instantly darkened at the sight of my injuries. He rushed over, ordering someone to help me to the bed, then commanded them to bring the best wound dressing. Turning to Sylvie, he let out a furious roar. "Your mother told you to let off steam, but you were supposed to just hit her a couple of times. You, on the other hand, hit the same spot again and again, as if you wanted to kill her. Do you want our entire family to be buried alongside this girl?" Sylvie cowered in Eleanor's embrace, not daring to utter a sound. My mother, ever protective of her favorite, glared at my father. "Weren't you tacitly approving just now? Now that something's happened, why blame the child?"
It dawned on me then.
My seemingly benevolent father had also been complicit in this brutal beating. It was like a bucket of ice water poured over me. I bit down hard on my lip, refusing to let the tears fall. Richard, impatient, snapped at me. "What are you crying about? If you hadn't insisted on releasing that statement, ruining Sylvie's reputation, would you have even gotten this beating? Consider this your lesson. The wound looks frightening, but with some ointment, it'll scab over by tomorrow. When you get to the Lorre estate tomorrow, mind your tongue. If you dare to speak out of turn and tarnish the Beaumont family's name, you'll have no one to protect you ever again." I swallowed the metallic taste in my throat, forcing a smile that was uglier than any grimace, offering not another word of rebuttal. After they left, I retrieved a small bottle of ointment from a hidden compartment. It wasn't a healing salve. It was a special reagent designed to keep wounds festering, even intensifying the pain. I instructed my trusty maid, Elizabeth, only person I could rely on in the Beaumont household, to secretly apply it. If I wasn't going to play a part, I would play it to the bitter end. The next day, the Lorre family's wedding procession, a formidable convoy, stopped majestically at the Beaumont estate gates. A line of identical black Maybachs, exuding an air of intimidating power. And leading the procession, surprisingly, was Gareth. How ironic. Was the Lorre family so short on people that they had to send this distant relative? Gareth wore a custom-tailored suit, looking every bit the polished gentleman. Covered by my red veil, I couldn't discern his expression, but I could feel his gaze, a mixture of disdain and smug schadenfreude. I refused his hand, finding my own way into the main wedding car. The moment the car door closed, I heard him murmur, "Good luck." I closed my eyes, leaning back against the seat, listening to the rushing wind outside. After what felt like an eternity, the car drove into the fabled, eerie Lorre Manor. Most of the elaborate ceremonies had been skipped. I was taken directly to the bridal chamber. The room held no joyous incense, only the stark scent of antiseptic mixed with crisp cedar. With the soft roll of a wheelchair, my veil was lifted by a cold, slender cane. Darius Lorre, the man rumored to be monstrously disfigured, sat before me in his wheelchair. His eyes were bandaged with white gauze, yet his face was impossibly striking, a high-bridged nose, tie-drawn and thin lips, all hinting at a sickly pallor and a shalmosto-esty cruel handsomeness. This wasn't invalid. He was a fallen demon. What a pity he was blind, and a madman incapable of intimacy. I was secretly lamenting his fate when my wrist was suddenly seized. With startling force, he yanked me onto his lap, then swiftly maneuvered himself, pressing me hard against the bed. The festering wound on my back hit the mattress, and I gasped in sharp pain, cold sweat instantly beading on my skin. "Finally, you're in my hands, Miss Beaumont." His voice was low and husky, laced with a dangerous undertone. My body stiffened, because I distinctly felt something pressing against me, a very clear, undeniable reaction. My eyes widened and I blurted out, tentatively, You're not incapacitated? And your legs can move." He quirked a corner of his lips. The eyes beneath the bandages, which should have been unfocused and vacant, instead held a chillingly playful glint. If I hadn't spread such false rumors, how else would the avaricious Beaumonts have pawned you off on me? Before his words fully registered, he shifted, his weight pressing down on me. The raw, festering wound on my back was crushed, and a searing pain shot through me. I let out a muffled groan, instantly drenched in cold sweat. "What's wrong?" "An injury on your back." Darius noticed my abnormal trembling, and his expression instantly hardened. He roughly flipped me over, his large hands tearing open the back of my wedding dress. When he saw the mangled, bleeding flesh, some of it even oozing and clinging to the fabric, the air around him seemed to freeze. His former playfulness transformed into a brutal, murderous intent. "The dignified Mrs. Lorre, the Beaumonts dared to treat you like this?" His voice was a low growl, laced with venom. "This outrage, I will repay it threefold when we return home in 3 days." My original plan was to keep this wound raw, even using it as a self-inflicted wound to drag those Beaumonts to hell with me. That's why I deliberately used the healing-retarding medicine. But in all my calculations, I had never anticipated that this madman, Darius, was not only not mad, but his disability was a complete sham. I endured the pain, staring at his sharply defined face, my mind swirling with questions. "Wait, you just said, 'Finally, you're in my hands.' You meant this was deliberate?" Darius reached for a jar of ointment on the nightstand. His movements were unexpectedly gentle, his fingertips delicately spreading the cool balm onto my wound. 5 years ago, I was ambushed abroad. My car's brakes failed, and it plunged off a cliff. You happened to pass by and, with your bare hands, pried open the twisted car door and dragged me out. Back then, my face was covered in blood, and I was temporarily blind, but I remembered the distinctive tattoo on your wrist and your voice. After returning home and consolidating my power, the first thing I did was propose marriage to the Beaumont family. I knew you were unloved there and wanted to use it as an opportunity to get you out. But those fools, the Beaumonts, wanting to elevate Sylvie, actually hid you away and even tried to remove you from the family register. I was so enraged that I decided to play along, faking my blindness and disability. And just as expected, to protect Sylvie, They obediently sent you back to me. Memories flooded back. I recalled saving an unlucky fellow driving a sports car while studying abroad all those years ago. But at the time, I was also fleeing my own enemies, so I slipped away after the rescue without ever clearly seeing his face. I never imagined that, through such a twisted path, it would turn out to be him. With the misunderstanding cleared, a complicated mix of emotions swirled within me. I had expected to endure excruciating pain and put on a desperate act with him tonight, even preparing myself for a battle to the death. Yet, Darius didn't continue his previous advances. He simply meticulously tended to my wounds, then lay beside me, extending an arm to loosely protect me. That night, in this Lorre manner, notorious for its ruthlessness, I unexpectedly found a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a very long time. 3 days later, it was the customary return visit to the bride's family. The Lorre family convoy, intimidating and resolute, once again pulled up to the Beaumont estate gates. Darius sat in his wheelchair, pushed by a bodyguard, as I walked beside him. In the Beaumont living room, my parents and Sylvie had been waiting for a long time. Their expressions were a fascinating kaleidoscope of emotions when they saw us. "Mr. Lorre, Serafina, you're back," Richard stammered. Sylvie stared at Darius's face, handsome even with sunglasses obscuring his eyes, her gaze wide with undisguised jealousy. Her eyes burned with resentment, then flickered down to Darius's legs, a hint of cruel satisfaction touching her lips. She moved her lips, silently mouthing an insult. I understood the shape of her words. Except for his face, he's utterly useless. I merely scoffed, ignoring her. Once we were seated, the atmosphere grew incredibly tense. Richard, seeing Darius's face darkened and silent since entering, began to sweat nervously, quickly forcing a smile. "Serafina is a spoiled child. If she has done anything amiss to upset you, Mr. Lorre, please don't take it to heart." Smash! Darius violently slammed his teacup onto the floor, shards scattering. "It seems your Beaumont family is the one that's spoiled rotten." His voice was a low snarl. "My wife, Mrs. Lorre, has a large, festering wound on her back. If you don't give me a satisfactory explanation today, I see no reason for this Beaumont estate to remain standing." His single declaration sent shivers down the spines of everyone in the room. Their faces paled, and they trembled like leaves. Eleanor and Sylvie huddled together, not daring to utter a sound. Only Gareth Maxwell, as a rising star in the Maxwell family, braved stepping forward. "Mr. Lorre, please calm your anger. Serafina's back injury, it happened a few days ago when she and I were playing golf. She accidentally lost her footing and grazed a nearby landscape stone. I apologized at the time, and Serafina said it was nothing. I assume a titan of the city's elite like you wouldn't hold onto such a small accident, would you?" Darius, though wearing sunglasses, exuded a coldness that could freeze a man to his core. He let out a cold laugh, tilting his head slightly in Gareth's direction. "Mr. Maxwell, your talent for blatant lies far surpasses your business acumen." He paused, then added, "However." Seeing Darius about to explode, I quickly reached out and pressed his hand, leaning in to whisper, "You're still feigning your disability, and the Beaumonts have powerful connections. Acting now might alert the enemy prematurely. The Maxwell family just secured a major project. If you move against Gareth, that project will collapse." The veins on Darius's hand bulged, but he bit back his anger, swallowing his words. Beneath the table, he clasped my hand, his palm burning hot, as if silently promising me, "One day, they will pay 1,000-fold." Darius, feigning discomfort, excused himself and returned to the car, leaving me to handle the remaining unpleasantness. Without Darius, that formidable presence, Sylvie immediately shed her pretense. She folded her arms, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "A cripple, and still such a temper. I don't think he'll hold on to his position in the Lorre family for much longer, will he? Serafina Beaumont, don't think that just because you're married, you've climbed the social ladder. Putting on such airs for a return visit, who are you trying to impress?" She smirked. Insider news says the Lorre collateral branches have already joined the board of directors to impeach him. How can a blind man run a company? You'll be nothing but a stray dog then. Eleanor chimed in, her voice sharp and acidic.
Exactly.
I heard that if Gareth's project succeeds, the Maxwell family will overshadow the Lorres. Then Sylvie will be Mrs. Maxwell. What will you have to compare to her? Gareth interjected, seemingly to defend me, but in reality, it was a warning. And Eleanor, be careful with your words. Serafina is still Mrs. Lorre after all. I looked at their ugly, smug faces, a cold laugh forming in my heart. Upon returning to Lorre Manor, I immediately used my identity as K, renowned hacker, to infiltrate the internal networks of the Beaumont Group and Maxwell Industries. Sure enough, the Beaumonts and Gareth were involved in insider trading, as well as severe tax evasion and money laundering. These were commercial crimes significant enough to land them in prison for life. After more than a month of investigation, the evidence in my hands had piled up into a mountain. It was around this time that a routine checkup at the hospital revealed I was pregnant. Twins, the doctor said. Darius was overjoyed, moving valuable items from the Lorre family vault into my room like a flowing river. Somehow, this news reached the Beaumonts' ears. Believing they had discovered leverage against me, they eagerly stormed into Lorre Manor to demand an explanation. While Darius was in his study on a video conference, Richard Beaumont burst into the living room and immediately tried to slap me. You shameless beast. Darius is already like that, and you dare to cheat on him, even getting pregnant with an illegitimate child. Are you trying to destroy the Beaumont family? If the Lorres find out you've made a cuckold of Darius, our entire family will be ruined. Eleanor, wailing hysterically, pointed a finger at my face and cursed. Oh, the shame. How could I have birthed such a dishonorable child? You dare try to pass off an illegitimate child as a laurel blood. She shoved a declaration of disownment into my hand. Sign this. From now on, you have no connection to the Beaumont family. Even if you die outside, don't you dare implicate Sylvie or us. I looked at the statement, feeling only a strange urge to laugh. Letting them in today was precisely for this document. Without a word, I picked up the pen and swiftly signed my name. Good. Remember, you are the ones who begged for this separation. Sylvie snatched the document, clutching it like a treasure, her face unable to conceal her triumphant smirk. At least you know your place. When the Lorres throw you out, don't come begging for scraps at our doorstep. Who said I was going to throw her out? A deep, magnetic voice, imbued with immense pressure, echoed from the top of the stairs. Darius, dressed in black loungewear, was not in his wheelchair. He descended the stairs with long, steady strides. He removed the sunglasses that were usually a permanent fixture on his face, revealing a pair of deep, sharp eyes that glinted with cold intelligence. I hear my esteemed in-laws have quite a strong opinion about my wife's children and mine. Richard Beaumont froze, his eyes almost popping out, his finger trembling as he pointed at Darius. You, your legs, your eyes. Darius walked over to me, wrapping an arm around my waist, a predatory smile playing on his lips. What's wrong? Disappointed? Did you think those useless third cousins should have brought me down long ago? The next second, the villa's main door was pushed open. It wasn't the butler, but a group of uniformed economic crime police officers and prosecutors. Mr. Richard Beaumont, Ms. Eleanor Beaumont, and Miss Sylvie Beaumont. The leading officer flashed his badge. We've received a report that the Beaumont Group is suspected of significant money laundering, tax evasion, and commercial fraud. The evidence is conclusive. Please come with us to assist with the investigation. The living room fell into a deathly silence. Richard's eyes rolled back, his legs giving way as he collapsed to the floor. Eleanor's face was ashen, her lips turning purple, her hand trembling as she clutched Sylvie's. How can this be? Sylvie's declaration of disownment fluttered to the floor, her entire being seemingly drained of life. Watching their faces contort with grief and terror, I gently stroked my swollen belly, smiling brilliantly. Darius was never disabled. Everything was merely a setup to lure the snakes out of their holes. My voice was calm, yet it sliced through the silence. Not only have I reclaimed my rightful shares, secured my position as Mrs. Lorre, and am carrying our children, but I've also successfully obtained the declaration of disownment you personally handed me. Darius not only married the woman he intended to, but he also conveniently helped me send you commercial parasites to prison. Truly, killing two birds with one stone. I walked over to Sylvie, nudging the disownment paper with my toe. As for you, your dream of being a celebrity, I'm afraid, is about to end. Sylvie suddenly lifted her head, shrieking, I'm Gareth Maxwell's fiancée. The Maxwell family won't abandon me. Gareth will save me. I looked at her with pity. Gareth? He has bigger problems. He was a link in your money laundering chain and is likely already having tea in the interrogation room next door. Furthermore, to protect their major project, the Maxwell family just unilaterally released a statement terminating his engagement to you and kicking him off the set. Your breach of contract penalties now will take you a lifetime to repay. Sylvie completely broke down, letting out a horrific wail, trying to claw at my face, but she was immediately handcuffed by the police. Serafina Beaumont, you wretched bitch. You did this on purpose. You'll die a terrible death. Darius's eyes hardened, and he motioned to a bodyguard. Miss Beaumont's mouth is too foul. Before you take her away, teach her a lesson. The bodyguard understood immediately, dragging Sylvie to a corner and delivering a series of brutal slaps. The sharp cracking sounds of the blows echoed through the hall, accompanied by Sylvie's screams, a chilling symphony. Richard and Eleanor watched, too terrified to even beg for mercy, and were dragged out like dead dogs. Once the extraneous personnel were cleared out, Darius picked up the declaration of disownment from the floor and handed it to the lawyer standing by. Have this notarized, effective immediately. He turned and scooped me into his arms, carrying me gently to the sofa, the ferocity in his eyes instantly melting into tenderness. Were you scared just now? I shook my head, but a knot remained in my heart. Just then, my personal assistant, Eliza, rushed in, her expression complex. Madam, the information you asked me to investigate regarding your background has come in. I opened the document, looking at the DNA results and an old recording, and tears instantly welled up. My mother's hateful gaze just before she was taken away still lingered in my mind. So, I really was mistaken. I asked, my voice trembling. The recording contained the dying confession of my mother's deceased housekeeper. She claimed that, out of jealousy for her employer's wealthy life, she had secretly swapped the babies at the hospital during birth. Sylvie was my biological sister, and I was the housekeeper's daughter. No, that wasn't right. I continued reading. It turned out the housekeeper, wanting her own biological daughter to live a good life, deliberately fabricated the lie, claiming I was the swapped one. My mother believed it, thinking I was the housekeeper's child, which was why she had harbored such intense hatred for me and doted on Sylvie for the past 6 months. In reality, Sylvie and I were fraternal twins, both true Beaumonts. It was just that Sylvie, being frail from childhood, had been raised by the housekeeper and completely brainwashed. My mother had been foolish enough to believe a housekeeper's dying words and had abused her own flesh and blood. I closed my eyes, tears falling. It was too absurd, but it no longer mattered. The Beaumont family was finished, and the declaration of disownment was signed. Regardless of blood ties, that fragile thread of kinship had been shattered beyond repair the moment the golf club descended. Later, Sylvie, though spared a prison sentence for her involvement in money laundering and commercial fraud, was burdened with immense debt. To repay it, she was forced to work as a cleaner at a high-end club, even having to kneel and pour drinks for patrons in VIP lounges. Darius took me there once. Through the one-way glass, I saw the once arrogant celebrity, now humbly polishing the shoes of a balding old man, her face plastered with a fawning smile, not a trace of her former pride remaining. I took one look, then turned away. What? Feeling soft-hearted? Darius asked, embracing me from behind. No, I replied softly. I just think the wicked inevitably face their reckoning. It's quite satisfying. 3 months later, Gareth was released due to insufficient evidence, but the Maxwell family had completely disowned him. Unwilling to give up, he attempted to make a comeback, even trying to gain public sympathy by slandering my name. That night, Darius returned to the bedroom after a meeting, pressing me onto the bed, his voice dangerously low. That Gareth is still stirring up trouble. It seems the last lesson wasn't enough. I looped my arms around his neck, smiling like a fox. Why rush? I have a way to silence him permanently. What way? Our southern subsidiary is bidding on a piece of land, right? It turns out there's an ancient burial site underneath, a protected cultural heritage area. He wants to buy that land to make his comeback. If he bids a high price for it, and then... Darius chuckled, his kiss falling on the corner of my lips. So wicked. But I like it. He added, then we'll proceed as my wife wishes. We'll call it, luring him into a trap. The truth about her parentage utterly shattered Eleanor's psychological defenses. In the prison visiting room, separated by glass, she wept, her once perfectly maintained eyes red and swollen. I was wrong. Serafina, your mother truly didn't know. That housekeeper lied to me. She then banged on the glass, fear overriding her regret, screaming, can't you plead with Mr. Lorre? If you just ask, the Lorre family can surely arrange for medical parole. Your mother doesn't want to be in prison. I held the receiver, watching her tearful display, feeling no ripple within me, almost a desire to laugh. Now you remember I'm your daughter? I asked, my voice flat. Back then, when you were paving the way for Sylvie, that adopted child, and sending me to be tormented by a cripple, why didn't you remember I was your daughter? She froze, the fear in her eyes eclipsing her regret, and she furiously pounded on the glass, shrieking, Serafina Beaumont, you can't be so heartless. I'm your mother. That Sylvie is a low-born wretch. I'll kill her. I calmly hung up the phone and turned to leave. It was too late. Everything was too late. I later heard that in prison, Eleanor and Richard blamed each other, even coming to blows. The once celebrated model couple became a laughingstock. Nor did I spare Sylvie. Although she avoided criminal prosecution, without the Beaumont family's protection and burdened by immense debt, she was relegated to working as the lowest-tier hostess in nightclubs. Rumor had it, this was a result of Darius's specific attention. Every night, the once high and mighty Miss Beaumont had to kneel to open bottles for guests, and even the slightest mistake resulted in a brutal beating. Less than 2 months later, Darius formally took over the Lorre Group, purged the board of directors, and became the true uncrowned king of the city's powerful circles. On the night of the celebration banquet, Eliza, my assistant, informed me that Sylvie had managed to sneak into the event and had furtively tampered with Darius's hangover remedy. There was no doubt she was making a desperate, all-or-nothing attempt to force his hand, to make it irreversible, and thus coerce Darius into helping her rise again. I didn't expose her. Instead, I simply had that doctored bowl of soup generously given to a disgruntled security guard in the back alley who had just been fired for fighting and was seething with aggression. Under the cover of a moonless, windy night, sounds that would make one blush emanated from the hotel's back garden, followed by a piercing shriek. Guests rushed to the scene and, sure enough, found Sylvie, her clothes disheveled, entangled with the security guard. I'll get away. What kind of scum are you? I wanted Mr. Lorre. Sylvie shrieked like a madwoman, scratching at the guard's face. The guard, high on the substance, retaliated with a slap. Who are you trying to fool? You threw yourself at me. I stood at the forefront of the crowd, my arm linked with Darius's, looking down at the farce. Isn't that the famous Sylvie Beaumont? What? Your dream of marrying into wealth was shattered, so you changed your taste to this. Sylvie saw me and shrieked as if she'd seen a ghost. Serafina Beaumont, you did this to me. That soup was for Darius. Why did this happen? How dare you? Eliza stepped forward, slapping Sylvie across the face. Spouting nonsense in front of Mr. Lorre and Madam, do you want to die? I covered my mouth, a soft, mocking laugh escaping, my eyes filled with scorn. It seems my dear sister is so desperate to marry into a higher social class, she's even reporting to security guards. Well, since you're so desperate for a man, consider your wish granted. After that night, Sylvie's reputation was utterly destroyed. The security guard, a notorious bully with a history of domestic violence, became obsessed with Sylvie, beating and kicking her at the slightest provocation. Less than 2 months later, I heard Sylvie, attempting to escape her debts and the abuse, tumbled down a flight of stairs in a frantic state. Her face was severely gashed by broken glass, permanently disfiguring her. She was eventually committed to a mental institution, ending her miserable days in that dark, foul-smelling corner. I used this incident to make an example, letting everyone in the city's elite circles know that Mrs. Lorre was not to be trifled with. Just as I thought everything had settled, Gareth Maxwell, who had disappeared 3 months prior, inexplicably returned. Gareth returned under a false identity. Not only was he unrepentant, but he also tried to use that ancient tomb land as a final gambit for a comeback. Instead, he fell perfectly into the trap Darius and I had set. His financial chain snapped, he was implicated in antiquities trafficking, and multiple charges piled up against him. The night before the police surrounded him, he had someone relay a message to me, asking to see me one last time. When Darius found out, he exploded. He paced back and forth in the bedroom, then pinned me to the bed, kissing me fiercely, biting my ear as he asked, "Do you still love him?" His actions rendered me speechless. I shook my head decisively. Of course not. I have you. My eyes aren't blind. Darius buried his face in my neck, taking a deep breath, his agitated emotions slowly calming. I'll take care of him. Don't, I said, holding his hand, a cold glint in my eye. Dying is too easy for him. There are some words I want to deliver to him in person, to send him on his way. The meeting was arranged in a dilapidated gazebo by the river. A biting wind howled. Gareth, unshaven and looking 10 years older, wore an ill-fitting old trench coat. When he saw me, a flicker of desperate hope ignited in his eyes, only to quickly dim. Serafina, I've lost everything. I pulled the heavy coat Darius had given me tighter around myself, my expression impassive. Mr. Maxwell, did you ask to see me just to say that? If this is a nostalgic reunion, it's unnecessary. Gareth let out a bitter laugh, pulling a bottle of red wine and 2 paper cups from his coat. I remember we once said that if we married, we'd drink a toast. I never expected that in the end, this would be our farewell drink. Serafina, I thought a lot during my time on the run. The truth is, I regret it. If I hadn't chosen Sylvie then, if you were still mine, stop disgusting me. I cut him off coldly. You don't regret it because you loved me. You regret it because Sylvie didn't bring you profit and my current status makes you envious. People like you will always love only yourselves. Exposed, Gareth's face cycled through shades of green and white. With trembling hands, he poured 2 cups of wine, offering one to me. Regardless, this drink is my apology to you. Drink this, and I'll surrender myself. If only you can forgive me. A trace of manic obsession lingered in his gaze as he stared intensely at me. I subtly observed the wine, not taking the cup. Gareth, do you know? Your tactics are truly pathetic. You want to poison me, or drug me and take me away, dragging me down with you, don't you? Gareth's hand trembled, spilling half a cup of wine. I stepped back, and instantly, a dozen black-clad bodyguards emerged from the surrounding bushes. Darius walked out from the shadows, his face grim, toying with an exquisite dagger in his hand. Attempting to poison my wife right in front of me, Gareth. You have quite the nerve. Gareth looked at the formidable display and sank into complete despair. He looked at me, tears and snot streaming down his face, laughing and crying at the same time. Serafina, are you truly so heartless? You won't even grant me a last wish. I linked my arm with Darius's, my gaze as pitying as if I were looking at an ant. You were the one who betrayed me first. This drink, keep it for your journey. Gareth looked at my resolute back, then at the rapidly approaching police and bodyguards. He suddenly threw his head back and laughed maniacally, raising the doctored wine cup and draining it in one gulp.
Fine.
As you wish. The poison acted quickly. The moment the police cuffed him, blood streamed from his eyes, nose, and mouth, and he collapsed, convulsing. His eyes, even in death, were fixed on me, filled with regret and resentment. Watching him being carried away, my heart skipped a beat, followed by a profound and lasting sense of liberation. Darius held me tightly from behind, his large hand resting on my gently swelling abdomen. Scared? No. I turned into his embrace. The wicked are all gone. From now on, only good days await. After Gareth's death, the news spread like wildfire that the legendary hacker, Kay, was none other than Mrs. Lorre. The city's elite circles were shaken. No one had expected that the top hacker, who commanded countless commercial secrets, was the cast-aside daughter of the Beaumont family. The Lorre Group's stock price soared. I became truly cherished within the Lorre family, and Darius pampered me beyond measure. Several months later, I safely gave birth to a boy and a girl at a top private hospital. Darius, looking at the two wrinkled little bundles, I teared up. He held my hand, kissing it repeatedly. Thank you, my love. 3 years later, at the Lorre Group's celebration banquet, Darius held our daughter, and I held our son's hand, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the city lights. Mr. Lorre, now that you have both your empire and your beauty, what more could you wish for? I teased him. Darius set down our daughter, embracing me from behind, his kiss falling on my ear, his voice deep and tender. Only one wish. To protect you, to protect this family, year after year. I squeezed his hand, looking out at the prosperous city, a gentle smile gracing my lips. This time, there was no resentment of a forced marriage, no misplaced affections. Only the brilliant life that truly belonged to me, Seraphina Beaumont.